Medfield TV presents Meet the Candidates, interviews with our citizens running for local offices. This series is brought to you by the joint efforts of Carol Mayer, Town Clerk, Kevin Murphy, Medfield High School Social Studies teacher, and Aditi Tate, Cheryl Dunley, and the staff of Medfield TV. I am Francesca D'Angelo from Medfield High School. I will be posing questions to the candidate. He will have 2 minutes to respond to each question, and at the end of each questioning period, the candidate will have 2 additional minutes to address the TV audience. Today, we are interviewing David Brousell. He is a candidate running for the office of Library Trustee. This position is for a 3-year term. There are 2 positions open, and he is running opposed. How are you doing today, David?
I'm well, thank you.
So your first question is, why do you want to run for Library Trustee?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I think this is a great idea to do this. Gets the information out to the people of Medfield. I have a very simple answer to why I'm running for this. I have an old friend of mine who's currently on the Board of Trustees who approached me one day a few weeks ago and said that they had a vacancy and they needed some help. And I thought about it, and I've lived in Medfield since 1989. And I've never done a darn thing for the town. So I said to myself, this is my chance to give something back, to help out the town as best I can, and so I would do it. So I threw my hat in the ring.
Nice. What experiences have you had in the past that will help you with this position?
Well, I'm not a library scientist, or I've never worked in a library outside of working during college in a library. But I have been in a lot of management positions throughout my journalism career, where I've managed large staffs of people, as well as processes, budgets, etc. So I can bring some management level experience to the position, some experience about formulating strategic plans, which I do on a regular basis for the business I work in now, as well as helping to ask the right questions about where the library should go in the future, how it should be operated most efficiently, whether it's staffed properly, budgeted properly, and run properly. So I think from a management point of view, I can bring an oversight to the library and contribute that way. I would not venture into the day-to-day operational tactics and details unless required, and leave that to the professional library staff who would be better equipped to handle that sort of thing than I would.
If there's one thing that you would like the voters to know about you, what might that be?
Well, when I set my mind to something to get it done, I usually get it done. I'm very focused, I'm very disciplined. I've been in business a long time. I think I understand how organizations work, how people respond and work. And I might go out on a limb and say I'm a people person, but I do think I have an affinity for managing people and understanding how organizations work, as I mentioned. And I'm frankly, I spend a lot of time thinking about future direction of the business I'm in, which is manufacturing. And I think I could bring a certain outlook and discipline and mindset and thinking process to what the future of the library could be or should be going forward. It's a very, very important resource for the people of Medfield, perhaps more important than ever in our digital age, in our information overload age. And I think that kind of thinking at the library would be welcome, and I think it would be useful. So I think that's what I can bring mostly to the position, and a dedication. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Great. What is one of the biggest challenges facing the library, and how might you approach this on your committee?
Yeah, all libraries have a lot of challenges these days, but as I just kind of mentioned very briefly before, I think probably the biggest issue facing our library and many other libraries, probably all libraries, is to remain relevant in the digital age. People have a lot of options today to find information, to do research, to connect to sources, whatever they may be doing. Obviously, people are on the internet from their home computers, their work computers, increasingly through their mobile devices. But yet the library remains a very important foundation for learning in our society, for bringing people together, to expanding knowledge, to expanding access to information. So I think the biggest issue is what kind of programs, what kind of configuration are we going to have in the library? What are we going to do with the library as digitization continues to expand and become more pervasive? The smartphone you're using today, you may think is very capable. 5 years, 10 years from now, its functionality is going to be so much more exponentially greater that you almost can't imagine what you're going to be able to do. In that context, when it comes to accessing information and doing research, we have to think about that in the context of our libraries and what our libraries are going to be able to offer people and how they're going to fit into our communities. And I think that's the biggest challenge before us.
A big issue with the town of Medfield's boards and elected offices is communication. How do you plan to reach a broader audience if elected and provide more transparency?
Well, this is the conundrum of the information age, isn't it? The information overload. We have more means of communicating than ever before, but one wonders whether we have more understanding. I think the Medfield Library is doing a great job with its website right now in terms of providing information about programs, about calendar events, new books that are out, programs for the kids, programs for adults too. And so I think there's a natural level to some extent about people who are really interested and are so motivated, they will seek out the library, they will seek out library resources. How can we expand things? I think we can expand things by through technology. We have to keep that website up. We also have to have mobile communications more and more to people. Maybe we think about creating a mobile app for the library down the road. Also, more programs, more initiatives, new ways of doing things in the library. If we can come up with those and then communicate them to the populace, I think we can probably get more engagement from the community. So I think it's a combination of things that we have to work on, technology, programmatic things, and just a lot of hard work, blocking and tackling and communicating with people. But the means are there. And as I said, I think the library is doing a pretty good job right now with its website. I spent a lot of time on it in the last few weeks. There could always be improvements. But it's trying very hard to communicate the value that it's creating, and it's creating a lot of great value right now.
What has been your biggest challenge so far in this campaign?
Well, I don't really know about that one. I can't say there's been a really huge challenge. What's been interesting is when I first was asked to get into this, quite frankly, I didn't know a great deal about the library. You know, I've been going to the library for the entire time I've lived in Medfield. My wife and I use it quite a bit, even now. But I can't say that I was very knowledgeable about many facets of the library, its operations, its budget, how it's managed, that sort of thing. So it has enabled me to really take a deep dive into what the library actually does, and it's been a very illuminating journey because it's doing a lot of things I never knew it did. And I would almost encourage every citizen, every resident of Medfield, that even though you might go in the library and borrow books from time to time or take advantage of a program, spend a little time on the website, find out about the programs, talk to some people. There's a lot more going on than meets the eye. That's what I found out. So that's not really a challenge, but it was a kind of a revelation to me about how much is going on. In terms of direct challenges, I can't say there's really been anything that significant. It's just getting the word out that I'm actually running for this. I've never run for anything in Medfield in my life. This is totally brand new to me, so I'm kind of learning the ropes and the rules. So from that point of view, perhaps that's been a challenge, but a very welcome one for me.
How is the library changing its procedures and services to adapt to the changes in technology?
Well, we kind of touched on that a little bit. It's done a very good job with its website, for example. It's also moved into the area of what's called additive printing or 3D printing. We now have a 3D printer in the library where people can come in, residents can come in, and actually make things. It's what's called the maker movement. And this is an area that the library sees as kind of a new area for engagement with the town folk to do new things using the library as the foundation. So now you can go into the library and using a 3D printer if you need to make a part for something that you're using in your house or an article of clothing or some other object that you need manufactured. You can take advantage of this capability now in the library. So this is a really great way to take a new technology, kind of expand the capabilities and competencies of the library and engage more people. This is particularly something good for the younger people who are interested in these new technologies and to take advantage of them. I mentioned before that perhaps we consider an app for the library down the road that will be able to enable people to connect and engage remotely with things. I think that might be a very good way to improve things. But otherwise, I think the library is doing a pretty good job in thinking about new technologies and taking advantage of them for the town folk.
And last question, how is the library focusing on all the different age groups it services?
It's been apparently doing this for quite some time. I remember when my 3 kids went through the Medfield school system and took advantage of the library, we always took them to the library for lots of programs, to look for books, to meet other small children and to have a kind of a social engagement with them. There's lots of programs for small children. There's lots of programs for teens currently. There's also programs for adults. So for example, there's a couple of adult programs underway now. I took a note on this just the other night, although I'm kind of blanking on it, that has to do around new books as well as some other activities. But what I would like to see going forward for additional programs, particularly for people in my age category, if you will, is I would like to see local and even national authors come in and talk about their new books, do book signings. We have some lecture series around new books. I'm a big book reader. In fact, I don't even buy paperback books. I buy hardcover books because I like hardcover books. And I would love to see authors come in and do this. The way I got this idea was I was leafing through the Boston Globe a number of months ago, and I noticed an item in it where it said Doris Kearns Goodwin was giving a talk about her new book at the in Concord. This was on a Sunday around noon, and we said, let's go. Because I had read many of her books and I wanted to see her. And we drove up to Concord and attended the lecture, which was absolutely packed. She did a book signing afterwards. And when I started to run for this position, I thought about that. And I said, you know, that would be a great thing for us, for the Medfield Library, to bring in someone like her, or even local authors. And I think these kinds of new ways of engaging and extending out into the community would help serve the various age demographics in Medfield, in addition to what's already being done. And there's a lot already being done.
Thank you. You now have 2 minutes to address the TV audience.
Okay, well, fellow Medfieldians, I'm very proud to have been asked to run for this position. I am committed, if elected, to being dedicated to this and applying myself and doing a good job for everyone. As I mentioned before, I don't have any particular background in library science, but I don't think that makes a whit of difference. I think I can bring management experience, some vision, a dedication and a passion for libraries to the position. I'm willing to work hard and apply myself to do this. But most importantly, as I mentioned at the outset of this interview, this is my chance to give something back to the town that my family and I have fallen in love with. We're transplants. We came from the New York, New Jersey area in the late 80s to Massachusetts to live. And we would never leave Medfield now. We love it so much. I've never done a thing for the town before. This is my chance. I hope you give me that chance. So I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much for participating in this interview.
Okay, thank you.
Please remember that democracy is not a spectator sport. Please vote at the Center on Icehouse Road on Monday, March 27th from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you.